Hey guys, so I am back like I never left for another video. I figured Clay is asleep and I have a little time and I want to get this out before 2018 ends. So this is my birthing story video. Hey everybody, it's Kyle Alive and I'm just that Indo girl living beyond my pain, and this is my birthing video of my little bundle of joy, Clay Canzader, which you guys have seen in past videos. So I finally have found the energy, the space, the time, the capacity, and the good mojo to just do this video, because it actually is a little emotional for myself and my husband, and I honestly just couldn't see myself recording this earlier, so I'm doing it now. All right, so Clay was born September 2nd, 2018. He weighed in at 8 pounds, 5 ounces, and he was born around 6 o'clock that day. And I say around that time because I was knocked out. So I carried Clay full term. We had a date scheduled for September 7th to be induced, and that was only because like 7 was a lucky number for both my husband and I. We both love the number 7, and we're like, hey, we'll just, ride this out till the 7th. But Labor Day weekend was definitely the weekend that he wanted to come into this earth, and we kind of pushed him out. It was just one of those things that I was tired of being pregnant. I was past my due date. My due date was August 30th, and I just wanted it to be over. Like, I was just ready. I was ready. Like, I was ready for him to come. I was ready to be done with pregnancy. I was ready. So there's this big fair that happens every year around this time in Maryland, and I thought I wasn't going to be able to go because my due date is August 30th, and it's literally not far from my parents' house. Like, you can walk there from my parents' house. So my husband and I, we were over at my parents' house that weekend. Prior to this, we had 2 scares already, where I just really didn't know if I was in labor or not. I had lost my mucus plug, and one of the biggest concerns was knowing if I would know if I was in labor, only because I have stage 4 endometriosis and I deal with so much pain. And for the longest, my doctor kept telling me every single time your cycle comes on, it's as if you're in labor. So granted, I was just really confused. Like, okay, is this a Braxton Hicks? Is it a real, like, is this real? Is it not real? Definitely went through a lot of that. Everybody thought, including myself, I would have this baby before my due date. I was working, I was still blogging and doing everything else that I do, and we were doing renovations to the house, and it was a lot going on. So I just knew that Clay was gonna come early. But Clay had other plans. Clay was definitely nice and snuggle-ug in there, and he did not want to leave the womb. So that Labor Day weekend, we literally just walked. I mean, we walked a lot. I was like reading up on how I can speed up my contractions, what I could do to go into labor, and definitely practice a lot of that. We ended up going to the fair. So my dad drove my husband and I to the fair, and then we walked back from the fair. So like, okay, let's just go to the fair, walk around. And that was a good day. I felt good. I was walking pretty good. Even though I was kind of walking around myself, I was walking really good. I had my Mess in a Bottle t-shirt on, like, fearless. I'm in here winning. Like, doing it. Felt really good about myself. So we walked back to my parents' house, and let me just be clear. On a regular day, I would not walk from the fairgrounds to my parents' house. They have mad hills in their neighborhood. It's just not what you want on a hot August day. Like, that's just not what you want. It's not what you want in September either. So we walked back to my parents' house. It was a hard walk, but I did it. And then we went inside the house and decided to watch a little TV. I sat on a yoga ball and I was just bouncing on the yoga ball like this, watching TV. And all of a sudden my contractions started hitting me hard. Like, I knew right away what it was and what was about to go down. And let me just say, for all of my endo girls out there who probably have the same kind of question, like, will I know if I go into labor? Yes, you will. You'll know. And I'll say this, it's not that you won't recognize the pain as something that you've experienced before. It's gonna be just that pain in a tense, different way. So yes, there are women out there who experience labor pains when their cycle comes on, including myself. However, it was like really, really intense, and it was something that I could not control. Like, usually when you are going through those type of pains, you're like, okay, well, let me take an Advil, let me get in the tub, let me do things to kind of ease those pains. And this is something that I couldn't ease, and it was coming from every direction. And it was intensified times 10 what I usually feel. Okay, so yes, you'll know it when you go into labor. So I literally started having contractions really bad. My water didn't break. Started having contractions and they started getting closer together. So my husband and I decided to go back to the emergency room for the third time. Now this is fun because my husband's like, are you sure? You positive? Now, are you sure? Like, are you sure? I'm like, listen, take me to the hospital. And in my mind, I'm like, I don't care if I tell you to take me to the hospital 20 times. Like, you're going to take me to the hospital every single time I say take me to the hospital. So we go to the hospital. We go to triage, and she's like, it's clear your contractions are close together, but I'm going to admit you. However, I need you to walk around a little bit to kind of get the contractions flowing a little bit more, and then we'll admit you into the room. So I'm like, okay, fine. So I'm going in. I'm already in a lot of pain, but we decided to go walk around, do all this stuff. And I didn't last that long walking around. I did push the limit though. So my husband and I started walking around, and then we decided to take an elevator. Note to self: if you are having contractions, don't take an elevator. Don't do it. Don't take an elevator. So we took the elevator up just to get a different scene, and walked around a little bit. I was on that floor for a couple of minutes, and then all of a sudden I just got really sick. Now mind you, before I left triage, I had vomited and I had my diarrhea flow, right? Both symptoms that we are very familiar with as endo girls. It happens when you go into labor too. I didn't think too much of it because, you know, the doctor told me to walk around a little bit. So fine. I get up on this floor and all of a sudden I just like keep vomiting. Like, I'm like bad. Like, I can't even walk. Like, it's bad. It's bad business. So I'm like, listen, we need to go back down. And my husband is trying to like help me out. Okay. So Clay's here now. I'll show you guys him in a second, but he's hungry. All right. So my husband's trying to appease me. He goes down and gets me some ice. By the time he comes back, I feel like I've lost my mind. Like, completely lost my mind. So he's like, okay, well, let's get in the elevator. Let's go back downstairs. It's time. So we get in the elevator. And when I tell you that gravity of that elevator did something crazy, all of a sudden I was in like the worst pain ever. Like, really, really bad. Now, mind you, this is Labor Day weekend, right? So it's not a regular day at the hospital. Like, my doctor wasn't there. The other doctor in her practice wasn't there. It was a doctor that I never met before that was there. It's just a lot going on. And apparently, you know, people take off on Labor Day weekend. We get back down to labor and delivery, and she's like, okay, well, we'll bring you back, but right now we don't have any rooms available. I'm like, okay. That's great. So my husband and I are sitting on the couch, and which I felt like an eternity, right? We're sitting on the couch, and I could not just sit up straight, right? Like I couldn't just sit there like this. Like I started laying on the couch, I was moaning, I was groaning, like it was a lot. And it felt like an eternity, which I believe was about 30 minutes before they actually came and got us. Like in between that time though, it was definitely some interesting things happening. It was a family out there who I guess they were waiting for their daughter, niece, nephew, cousin. It was a big group of people out there, and they came over to my husband and I, and they're just like, is everything okay? Like, why aren't they bringing her back? You know, can we pray for you? And when I tell you I was in so much pain, and I'm not the type that lets anybody just pray for me. Hey man, I'm not the type to just let anybody just pray for me, but I was like, yes, pray. Pray. Please pray. Please pray. So the man started praying over me, and then it was, you know, they started asking questions. They're like, why won't they bring her back? Like, do you guys have insurance? And I'm just like, mind you, I'm in so much pain. Like the whole time I have my eyes closed. Like I'm just like, I can't deal. And I'm just like, yeah, just because we're like the only black people in here, we have insurance. Please believe I got good insurance. But I'm like, all right, whatever. Neither here nor there. So eventually they did bring us back, and she literally checks me in triage, and my water breaks, right? And when I tell you, it was like a water flow of pain that it just got real. Like it got ugly real. Like I was like, I felt it. I felt her like checking. I felt my water break. I felt it all oozing out, and it just felt like, oh hell no. Like my husband says that I went crazy after that, but that's his story to tell. I'm telling my story. So after that, she told me that Clay had experienced some distress, and he was sitting in meconium. Meconium is basically the baby's first poop, so that just kind of like made me worry 10 times over. But they got me into a room. Now, by then, I was in so much pain. I was just like, yo, like, I said that I wanted a natural birth. I said that I didn't want to do any, actually didn't want to even go to the hospital. Like I wanted to have a water birth. I wanted to have a doula. I wanted all this stuff. That did not happen. And yeah, I ended up having an epidural like right away. Like the time we got back in the room, I was like, yes, hook me up. And I was about 4 centimeters dilated at the time. So of course when you have an epidural, it slows things down, which it did for me. So we literally were sitting in the room waiting for me to dilate further, which did not happen. So this is all Saturday. Went to sleep, woke up, had great sleep, right? Like I'm thinking like, oh, epidural is awesome. Like I can sleep through this. I'm gonna wake up, it's gonna be time. You know, I really don't want to get stuck with the needle. It's okay. I will say that the needle experience was not as traumatic as I thought it would be. It did numb my back pretty good. You know, my husband held me down. I did not see the needle. Like, we're good. Even though emotionally, I did not want to do this. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So, slept really great. They monitored Clay. He was doing good, even though he was still in meconium. And then the next day, I woke up and I'm like starting to feel pain again. Starting to feel the pain again. Now they give you a little button to press for your pain levels. Press the button like for a while. You know, I press the button every now and then and pain will go away. But it's like increasingly getting there. So then it's time to push. Like, we're dilated. It's time. So we start to push, and by the time I get ready to start to push, my epidural wears all the way off. Like, nothing's working. Like, I feel all the pain in my back. Like, I feel everything. It's all the way there. So they call the anesthesiologist back in to check my epidural, which looks fine. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to administer a stronger dosage. And he does. And I still feel all the pain. So I'm actively pushing. I'm actively pushing for a couple of hours. I would say maybe 2 or 3 hours. And they put a mirror in front of me because by then I'm like extremely tired. Like, I'm tired, drained, tired. Like, I just feel like I just can't push anymore. Like, to me, I just couldn't do it anymore. And they put a mirror in front of me to just say, like, hey, like, he's crowning. Like, we can see his head, and I see Clay's head. I'm just like, okay, it's just a couple more pushes left. I'm like, I just can't do it. You know, it's a lot. So then she pretty much like explains to me, like, hey, it's basically like your pelvic bone is the way that your uterus is set up, and your pelvic bone, he has to kind of like go down and then up to get out. And she said that, well, at this point we can do 2 things. One of 2 things. We could either suction him out, you know, the cone, suction him out, or we can have a C-section. So at this point, I'm just thinking about the fact that Clay has been sitting in meconium for over 10 hours. And I did not want him to be any more stressed. And I felt like, you know, suctioning him out was just not an option. So I opted for epidural, even though both my mom and my husband were just like, no, like, I feel like you need to keep trying to push, and you need to do what you can to get him out this way. But something in my heart was just saying, like, this has to end now. Like, he needs to come out now. I need this to stop now. So we suited up for a C-section. So we go back to get the C-section. The anesthesiologist dopes me back up, and unfortunately it's not taking. Like, I can feel it all. Like, he kept like going like this on my legs. Like, can you feel that? He felt like that on my stomach. Can you feel that? Yes, I can feel that. 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 I felt everything. So at that point he was like, either we could try to administer a new epidural, that means sticking me in my back again, or we can go ahead and just put you under anesthesia. Now, my whole thing was like, the epidural isn't working. It hasn't been working. Like, I don't know what's going on back there, but I'm not going to allow you to stick me in my back again. So I decided to get put under, which meant that nobody could be in the room at the time of my delivery. Really sad for my husband and I. However, I just wanted to get Clay out as safely and quickly as possible. So at that time, I'm out, and when I wake up, my husband, I'm in the room, I see my parents, and I see the anesthesiologist over me, and he's just like, hey, you okay? And I'm like, okay, I'm good. I get wheeled into the room where my husband meets me there with pictures of my son, and Clay was still in the back with his pediatrician because he was born not breathing and he was blue. So they had to section him out and get him all cleaned out and make sure he was good before they brought him back to me. And that was such a scary thing to hear, waking up after having a C-section, that, you know, my son is still back there and they want to make sure that he's good and clean. So Clay was born at 6. I didn't see him until around 8:30, 9 o'clock that night. The great thing about it all was when Clay saw me, he latched on right away, because I was just scared that he wasn't going to latch on. And as you can hear in the background, Clay still latches on. So a couple of other great things is that I had some amazing nurses by my side, and they stayed past their scheduled time just to make sure that I was good. So when I woke up, I saw my anesthesiologist. I saw those 2 nurses that stayed with me past their shifts, and my parents, and that really did make me feel like, you know, I was loved. They actually wheeled me to my room. They gave me a hug before they left, and you know, I can say that it was definitely a traumatic experience. It was worth it because my son is nice and healthy. But yeah, that's how Clay got here. Alright guys, I hope that this story is enlightening. For those who are going through it, know that you can get through it too. And if you have to go through the same experience, which I pray you don't, it's going to be okay. Alright guys, until next time. Peace.